Hello, this is Bishop William Koenig. Welcome to Catholic Forum, a weekly presentation of the Office of Communication of the Diocese of Wilmington. Now, here is your host, Bob Krebs.
Thanks, Bishop. It was announced recently that after serving for 195 years in the Diocese of Wilmington, the Daughters of Charity will be leaving. On this episode of Catholic Forum, after a news update from the Dialogue and thedialogue.org, we will be joined by the last two Daughters of Charity, Sister Joanne Gerke and Sister Mary Ellen Thomas. The sisters will tell us about their community, founded by St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, what brought them to Wilmington, and how they serve the area. Sisters Mary Ellen and Joanne are my guests on this edition of Catholic Forum. I hope you find today's program informative and inspirational. Now, here's Joe Owens with the news.
Thank you, Bob Krebs, with news for the Catholic community of Delaware, Maryland's Eastern Shore, and beyond. I am Joseph P. Owens, editor of the Dialogue. A new pope chosen among 133 cardinal electors has many challenges ahead. As the Catholic Church and its cardinals were preparing for May's conclave, a new study by the Pew Research Center shows that U.S. Catholics want a more inclusive church, but divides remain on key issues among those with differing mass attendance rates. The survey found that 60% of U.S. Catholics said the church should be more inclusive, even if that means changing some of its teachings, while 37% said the church should stick to its traditional teachings, even if that means the church gets smaller. But among those who attend Mass weekly, 53% said the church should prioritize its traditional teachings, while 42% said it should prioritize inclusivity. White non-Hispanic Catholics, for 61%, were more likely to prioritize inclusivity over keeping traditional teaching than Hispanic Catholics at 56%. Hispanic Catholics showed stronger support for insisting the church stick to traditional teachings at 40% than white non-Hispanic Catholics at 37%. The survey did not include enough Black or Asian Catholics to break out separate responses. According to the study, 84% of U.S. Catholics said the church should allow Catholics to use birth control. It did not distinguish between natural and artificial methods, while another 83% said the church should allow couples to use in vitro fertilization, or IVF. Those numbers slightly decreased to 72% for birth control and 71% for IVF among weekly Mass goers. Chris Kenny likes to say his involvement with Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Wilmington has lasted a lifetime. From birth, I have been involved with Catholic Social Services, the forerunner of Catholic Charities, said Kenny, the president and chief executive officer of the Kenny Family ShopRites of Delaware and the owner of Delaware Live, an online news site that is marking its 5th year in 2025. He said his mother, Peg, and Father Bernard were foster parents for Catholic Charities for more than half a century and took in more than 115 children under the age of 1. The couple adopted Kenny and his biological sister. In addition to being a businessman, Kenny is also a philanthropist who has thrown his support and that of his family's foundation behind many organizations and projects in the community. He will be honored with the Monsignor Thomas J. Reese Award at Catholic Charities annual dinner on May 14th at the Hotel DuPont in Wilmington. Kenny, who turns 49 in June, has worked in management with Kenny Family ShopRites since graduating from law school in 2002. From observing his father and his uncle Richard, it became clear that the two of them had a deep relationship with the community, including Catholic Charities and other faith-based organization. Kenny said he learned a lot from them, especially never to say no. That's really how we've operated as a family, he said. We always found a way to get to yes. When a request comes in, the foundation does what he can, he said. That doesn't mean the support is always 100% of what is requested, but the answer is never no. Information on buying tickets to the fundraiser can be found at ccwilm.org. And don't forget, for up-to-the-minute news, visit thedialogue.org and pick up a copy of the Dialogue newspaper in the Catholic churches and schools in the Diocese of Wilmington. For Catholic Forum, I'm Joseph P. Owens, editor of The Dialogue.
This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. In 1806, I believe, the St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, who was the first American-born saint, created the Daughters of Charity. 195 years ago, the Daughters of Charity came to Wilmington, Delaware, to work at the Cathedral of St. Peter. And today on Catholic Forum, I have two of those sisters here, not the ones that came 195 years ago. These are other ones. Sister Joanne Gerke, who is teaches religion at the Cathedral School and is also the school librarian. And Sister Mary Ellen Thomas is also a member of the Daughters of Charity, and she works at the St. Patrick's Parish Outreach, which is like a sister parish to the cathedral. So, sisters, thanks so much for taking time to come and visit with us today on Catholic Forum. We're going to be talking about the Daughters of Charity, their long history in our diocese. Before we do that, let's get to know you a little bit. Sister Joanne, tell us about yourself, if you would, please.
Well, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and I spent my childhood and high school years there. And during that time, as far as relationships with sisters, I had the Ursuline sisters in the beginning. I went to a very small school called St. Michael's School in Overley, which is right outside the city line. And the Ursuline sisters were a cloistered community, and so we got used to sisters not being able to go out shopping and be on the street or anything like that. And they are Ursulines that are from Wilmington. And so that community had to withdraw because they didn't have enough sisters. And so the Daughters of Charity came. And so I had the daughters at the end of my 7th and 8th grade. And then I went to their high school in Baltimore called Seton High School. So that's where I became acquainted with the Daughters of Charity and the seeds of my vocation.
That's wonderful. You might have been an Ursuline if that hadn't happened right there. I went to school at St. Anthony of Padua, which is just down the road from St. Michael's in Overley, so it's a small world. So you're an Orioles fan, sister?
You have to be.
Absolutely. Sister Mary Ellen, how about you?
Oh, my goodness. I began in Darby, Pennsylvania, very close to here, and I stayed in places called Glenolden and other little suburbs or little towns in Delaware County. So I feel pretty much at home here. I've been a daughter for 57 years. Oh. It's a very long time, but a very good decision to be a daughter of charity. How did I find the daughters? It's embedded in our family, goes back 2 or 3 generations. I'm very proud of that because we used to sit around having tea at 10:30 at night, and guess what? Who'd we end up talking about? The Daughters of Charity. So it goes way back, but my specific moment of deciding to come towards the Daughters was when I was 12 years old. I was really young, amazingly young, but now I can see the hand of the Lord leading me to where I am. I'm so grateful to be here.
What, in your 57 years, what would have been some of your assignments, or where were you missioned?
The Lord does send you in ways that you never dreamed about. And one way was through childcare. When I was 13 years old, I was with the daughters on a field trip, and they had 100 children under 5 years of age. That caught my attention.
I bet it did.
I never forgot it.
It would have sent me running in the opposite direction.
I thought, how are they able to manage? It was 70th and Woodland. I remember it so clearly. That was a stepping stone towards the daughters.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. I can see it very clearly. Maybe not in the beginning, but
Looking back, yeah.
looking back for sure. So that led me into childcare. Childcare led me into caseworking, and that led me into social work. And then the Lord decided differently. I was called to teach the faith, which was a marvelous experience for me. And currently working with a group of seniors from Wilmington, Delaware, who are Christian-based. And we do appreciate being with the Lord each day. They just keep coming. And the Lord gives us the strength to do what we're doing.
Is that a residential?
No,
it's like a day.
It's a day program with lots of activities, education, most of all, friendships from the past to the future, to the present.
Right. How about you, Sister Joanne? Do you have any? Where have you served in your time as a daughter of charity?
Generally in the southern tier of eastern states, and I've pretty much almost always been in education. For a couple years, I was asked to set up that was before Medicare Part D, and to set up a medication assistance program. And my only claim to fame was that they said, well, you're a school teacher, and school teachers are organized, so you'll figure out how to organize this. So that program is still running because if you're under, I think the age is cut off at 61, you're not eligible for medications like you are as a senior. So that's still running, and I feel very happy that I was involved in that. But every place else has been as a elementary teacher or administrator, principal. Big schools and little schools. The smallest school I was in Western North Carolina, and we had 60 children.
Wow.
And 3 teachers, and it was, I think, one of my most beloved places.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the family setting.
Yeah.
And then I was in big schools, especially when I started out. The biggest school was in Ohio, and there were over 1,000 children. That was in the days when I was just starting out, and they were packed with children.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you both for your many, many years of service and your doing God's work. It's very, very impressive. At the very beginning, I mentioned about St. Elizabeth Ann Seton and the Daughters of Charity, but Sister Mary Ellen, give us a little bit more of a background about the Daughters of Charity and St. Elizabeth Ann.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Sister Joanne.
Sure,
She is
absolutely.
our historian of us, historians.
All right, go ahead, Sister.
I've always loved history. So back in the time of Mother Seton, she became a Catholic through a long journey of a lot of persecution with her family and for embracing the Catholic faith, and which prompted the bishops back in those days, who were very involved with the Catholic community because they were so small. And so the bishops encouraged her to move to Baltimore to start a school. And she moved to Baltimore, and the bishops, there were like 3 of them in the country, and they arranged for her sons to go to Georgetown so that they got their education there, and she stayed in Baltimore for a while until the story goes, some gentleman gave them a large piece of property with a proviso that she would move up there and start her sisters, and that's how they got to Emmitsburg. And so Now I got off track. What was your question?
Well, so they moved. Mother Seton moved her group to Emmitsburg, and they started a school there.
They
right?
started, and the purpose of the school was so that she could make a living. And they started a boarding school because they were out in the country, and richer people could afford to send their children and pay for it. And then she had some orphans that were mixed in with that group. And from that, as all things are that are God's work, it just grew imperceptibly and got bigger and bigger until at one time they had an actual college up there called St. Joseph's, and lots of educational endeavors. And so as time went on, the sisters were also sent to many different dioceses. One was Philadelphia, and from Philly, they came, because Wilmington was part of Philadelphia's diocese.
Back then, yeah.
And that's how the daughters got to Wilmington. So in 1831, they came from Philly to Wilmington, three daughters of charity.
Right, and they were.
Well, they were actually Black Caps, Sisters of Charity.
They were what?
Black Caps, the Mother Seton sisters.
Oh, right.
They weren't daughters yet.
Oh, I see.
In the history of it, a couple of the bishops were afraid that the sisters would be pulled apart by different bishops wanting them to do different things.
Oh, that would never happen.
And changing their charism.
Right.
And so they became the negotiators to have the French community of Daughters of Charity in Paris adopt this American community.
Gotcha.
And so at the time, the sisters in Wilmington opted to change and take vows with the Daughters of Charity, and other cities did not opt to do that.
I see.
For example, Cincinnati. They stayed there and they became the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati. But so that's how you have so many different Sisters of Charity evolving.
And that's how you became associated with St. Vincent de Paul, right?
St. Vincent was when, in 1850, they officially became associated with the French community, and so took the vows that we now take traditionally under the Vincentian priest and superior generals in Paris. And so it's a long history and a little complex.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And a lot of going back and forth to try to please clergy and try to serve the people and remain faithful to your charism.
Yeah.
And so that's how we're here now
Right.
As Daughters of Charity.
But the daughters came to Wilmington to start an orphanage, is that correct?
And that's on right where we live, at Sixton West. They started an orphanage there. And
is that in the convent building? Is that where it was located?
Where the convent is now,
Yes.
but it's a different building.
Gotcha.
But they started a orphanage, and the reason they were the actual letter of the priest asking, the pastor of St. Peter's sent a letter asking for daughters, sent it to Emmitsburg, asking for the sisters to come and staff an orphanage, because they worked at the gunpowder factories run by the DuPonts.
Right.
And there were so many explosions and so many deaths that there were many orphans. And in the letter, it's very much cultural for the time. They were very worried that the children would be taken into Protestant orphanages and lose their faith.
Right.
And so the whole point was to nurture the faith by setting up a Catholic orphanage.
Right.
And so three sisters from Emmitsburg came to Wilmington to start that school.
And those the victims of those explosions in the gunpowder plants were immigrants,
Mainly Irish.
Mainly Irish. So, you get the immigrants to do the jobs that nobody else wants.
Right.
Some things never change, right, sister? Unfortunately, yeah, just immigrants from different places. Yeah, so that is an amazing history going way back 195 years. And then, how long was the orphanage in operation? At some point, I guess you switched to being a school teachers there, right?
Well, it was back in those days. The children in the orphanage were taught in the orphanage.
Gotcha.
So the sisters were like caretakers and
then
teachers.
Yeah.
And so the school on the property that the sisters' house is now, that's where the original building was for the orphanage and school. And then in I think it was 1925, they built another building, which was a specific school building. And the residents of the orphanage were moved to out in the country. I don't know where it was, but they completely abandoned that property, and then they built the sisters' house there.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
So it's a long history.
It is. My guests today on Catholic Forum are Sisters Joanne Gerke and Sister Mary Ellen Thomas. They're Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul, working at St. Peter's Cathedral and School, and Sister Mary Ellen at the St. Patrick Center. And we're happy to have them on the program today, talking about the wonderful 195-year history that the daughters have here in our diocese. So let's talk about the Cathedral School as it is today. How many students do you have there now, Sister?
At present, we have 71 students, and they're K through 8. And there's 8 teachers and 4 staff members. And we're a tuition-based school, and so for families who can't afford to pay full tuition, there's a lot of different ways that we raise scholarship funds for them, financial aid scholarship funds for them to attend. And so for many families, the only way that they can continue to send their children is to be able to get that scholarship money.
Right.
They are almost invariably families who have a history with the school. Their parents went there, their grandparents went there, their great-grandparents went there, so they have long histories of being associated with the school. Right. And it's well known in the city as a school that they appreciate the education that the children are getting, and then there are many different ways that scholarship funds are raised as well. And
the neighborhood there has changed over the decades. At one time it might have been primarily a Catholic neighborhood, but that's not the case anymore. Is that true?
No. Most of the buildings are 3-story dwellings, but a lot of them are different apartments.
Right.
So but most of the children who attend the school live in the same zip code area, 19801, that the school is.
Interesting.
So they're very close to the school.
Right.
Many of them walk to school, so that there's, and then there's a child care before and after care for the families, for them to be able to have their children come.
Right.
There's, you would ask the question, what do we need?
What do you need?
I have a list.
Okay, go right ahead.
One, of course, is contributions for tuition assistance for children. And the children work hard. They appreciate the education. There's a lot of family spirit there. And so any child who can come, their families really appreciate it.
And it's always, not always, but for most, it's a sacrifice.
Big sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any little bit of assistance can certainly be helpful.
Other things that Karen Banta, our principal, said that we need are new Chromebooks. Ours are old, outdated, need upgrades, and so that's something that they need. We also need volunteers. I can vouch for that. I have several volunteers that come and help in the library because it's hard to keep up a library and teach classes and all of that. So their volunteers are terrific help. And the aftercare, we do have some volunteers who come and do different little programs with the children. It's arts and crafts or maybe some type of a physical activity. And so there's some of our needs that we have that appreciate any donations that would support the school.
Yeah.
And for the children who attend there, they have a great spirit, and they love their school, and they always come back. So we have very good attendance at reunions and all those different ways that people come back for either a Christmas bazaar or some type of activity at the school.
So the St. Peter's Cathedral School is a really it's really the epitome of a neighborhood school.
Yes.
And if anyone's listening who has connections to get some Chromebooks or would like to donate some money, then please give the Cathedral School a call. Let's talk a little bit with Sister Mary Ellen. Talk about your work at the St. Patrick's Center. What is the St. Patrick's Center?
It's an outreach center. It serves over 200 people a day. It meets the needs of the neighborhood, meaning clothing, food, meals, groceries. Very big on food distribution. And we have over 100 seniors that are connected with the St. Patrick's Senior Outreach that we do on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. Bob, it's an amazing experience because much like St. Peter's School, they know one another. They've grown up with one another. They went to school with one another. And that brings them together in their later years. So it's a happy place. It's a place that's constantly developing into something different. What I'm amazed at is they come. They come if they want to, if they hope to. They want to. The latest development of people coming is out of COVID. That isolation was unbelievably desolate for them. We served them food by bringing groceries to their homes and everything every week, but at the same time, they were by themselves for over 2 years. I think that is the best explanation, and it's a Christ-centered place. We try real. Let's see, it's not housing, but for 5 hours, the homeless have a place to stay. The elderly, or people very much like myself, have food to eat.
And they have company.
It goes so far.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an enjoyable place. Encourage people to come and visit. It's an excellent program.
Great. Well, sisters, we are out of time, and you need to get back to work because you're both very, very busy. Sister Joanne Gerke, thanks so much for being with us. Sister Mary Ellen Thomas, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you.
If you can help or want more information, you can go to downtowncatholic.org, and I think there's a St. Peter's Cathedral School.org, I think, is the website. So, once again, sisters, thanks so much for being with us today. God bless.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
Bob.
And you're invited to attend a special Mass in honor of the Daughters of Charity celebrated by Bishop Koenig at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at the Cathedral of St. Peter. The Mass will be live streamed on the Diocese of Wilmington's YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Diocese of Wilmington, where you can also see a video of this Catholic Forum interview. And on the next Catholic Forum, we'll hear the winning essays in the Knights of Columbus Vocation Essay Contest presented by the winning students. Join us again next week for another edition of Catholic Forum. Have a great week.
This is Bishop William Koenig of the Diocese of Wilmington. Thank you for listening to this edition of Catholic Forum. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.